Welcome to our first edition of the Calm Conversation, a WCTV special YouTube series which dives into the career path and descent of the Department of Communication for our students, faculty, and alumni here at Waynesburg University. My first guest today is my faculty advisor and the faculty advisor for many of us here in the Department of Communication, Professor Lanny Frattare. Lanny, thank you very much for joining us on the first episode of this show.
Thanks for the invite.
I'll start with this, since we're going to dive into your career path first. How did you get going into sports broadcasting? What was the beginning of your path and your journey?
Well, I wanted, at the age of 13, I knew that I wanted to be a baseball announcer. In 8th grade, I wrote a report on, it was a career report, did it on announcing, and the more I investigated it, the more I believed that it would be a great profession for me. I'm not sure that when I was 13 or 14, I really did seriously believe that I would make it to the major leagues, but and all of my teachers in high school and my parents, everybody knew that I wanted to be a baseball announcer, and so I had so many people that were opening up opportunities for me. One of my favorite stories is that I have an older brother, so when I was 13, he was 17, and when my brother would play baseball, my dad would park the car so I could sit in the front seat of the car and announce my brother's baseball games. I mean, obviously I wasn't announcing to anybody, I was just announcing to announce. So it all worked out pretty well for me.
You talked about all those influential people in your life. Who was your biggest influence growing up?
Oh, my dad, without question. My hero all the way. And as I said, and another thing too is that when I was 14, my parents bought me a tape recorder with a record player, and my folks didn't have a lot of money, so it was really a significant decision on their part. And what I did is I opened up my own radio station in my basement, and I pretended I was a disc jockey and a sportscaster. My all-time favorite Christmas gift was the year I got my tape recorder and my record player.
You had a lot of cool jobs before you got to the Pirates. You were a disc jockey for a little bit. You were a minor league hockey announcer, minor league baseball. How much did those experiences help you as you grew in sports announcing?
Oh, everything. And I've talked to you and your classmates about this. If you want to be successful in broadcasting, then you have to, as quickly as you can in your life, start practicing, start honing your skills and your talents. And you know this because you did a lot of baseball with the Wild Things in 2018, and then this past summer you did a whole ton of baseball again. And you know just by doing so much of it that you get better and you understand what it is you want to do and how you deal with some of the mistakes and things that you don't want to do.
Throughout all your years of broadcasting, what have you picked up as the biggest change you've seen over the years in the field?
Boy, I don't think there's been major changes in broadcasting. Obviously, the technology is so much better, particularly as it relates to television covering sporting events. But the principles that were there when I was in my formative years about doing preparation and about practicing and as I said a moment ago, honing your skills, those things are still there. Granted, there's always going to be a new generation of sportscasters that come along and are going to do it just a little bit different, but the basic principles of success haven't changed all that dramatically.
So you've been involved in teaching at Waynesburg University as a professor when it comes to communication for the last 10 years or so. What drew you to Waynesburg? I should first ask that.
Well, it was fortuitous. I left the Pirates in the fall of 2008, and in the spring of 2009, I still didn't have a job and didn't know what I was going to do. The fortunate thing for me was that even though I left in 2008, the Pirates agreed to pay me through 2009, so I had some flexibility. But one Sunday morning, I opened the Post-Gazette, and I looked through the want ads, and there was an ad for Waynesburg. They were looking for a professor in the communications department to be advisor of the radio station. The ad said you had to have teaching experience, you had to have a master's degree. Well, I didn't have either. But nevertheless, that Sunday I put my resume together, wrote a cover letter, sent it, And because I was concerned that HR would throw me out, I sent 3 letters. I sent one to HR. I sent one to, and I found this out by going on the internet, to the president of Waynesburg University, Timothy Thyrene.
Okay.
And then I sent one to the chairman of the communications department, Richard Krause. I sent the letters to those 3 individuals on Monday morning. Thursday of that week, I got a call from President Thyrene asking me if I would come down and meet with him. We talked, and I talked to Professor Krause and met with some other people on campus. And then in that spring, I think it was April 1st of 2009, I started here at Waynesburg.
What's the most rewarding part about teaching?
Without question, interfacing with students. And I'll tell you what, whenever anybody says to me and makes a derogatory comment about your generation, I get really upset, because the students that I have met, most of them, not all of them, but most of them are outstanding young people. And the fact that they may know, in some cases, they may not know where they're going. But the fact that I've been having this opportunity to share my thoughts with them and have them share their thoughts with me. And by the way, for your audience, and you know this, I'm a strong believer in being honest with my students. I tell my students all about my life, my ups, my downs, because I want them to be as familiar with those aspects as it relates to not only a career in broadcasting, but going through life.
We're talking with Lanny Frattare here on the Calm Conversation on WCTV. You've also overseen the sports announcing camp over the last 10 years or so at Waynesburg. It's a great recruiting tool as well. How much has that experience allowed you to become a better teacher at Waynesburg University, and how influential has that opportunity been to host the sports announcing camp?
When we that was my wallet, by the way, that just dropped. When we started the camp in 2010, admittedly, I wasn't sure if it was going to be successful or not. I was somewhat afraid when we opened that camp that first Monday that we had the students come in. But it has been tremendously successful. And it's given me the opportunity to get to know these students. Your point about recruiting, 25% of the students that have come to the camp have come to Waynesburg University, which I think is an outstanding number. And then the other key ingredient is the opportunity for these students to get to know the camp well enough, or get to know the campus well enough, that they do want to come to Waynesburg. What's been exciting for me the last 2 years is that my grandson Spencer came to the camp in 2018, came to the camp in 2019, and it looks like Spencer is going to come to Waynesburg in the fall of 2020. So it'd be wonderful for me to have my grandson majoring in communications right here on the Waynesburg campus.
That's really, really cool. You also, in addition to teaching, still dabble in announcing with the Trib Live High School Sports Network and get to announce WPIAL high school football games. What has that been like?
Oh, it's been fabulous. Football, basketball, baseball, softball. I love putting on the headsets. As you know, we don't do it for great money. Don Rebel pays $50 a game. Justin LeBar, the 2 bosses, but we don't do it. At least I don't do it for the money. Maybe Mitch, since you're a part of the team, you'd like to have a few more bucks involved in that. But what's been so great about doing sports, high school sports in 2010, is that the athletic directors, the coaches, the players, they're all wonderful. They're all so very helpful. They're most appreciative that you're coming out.
And they all have stories too.
Yeah, and you're coming out and you're covering their team. They really appreciate that.
So I heard you mention one time in one of our classes that announcing with Trib allows you to still relate to students when it comes to what they're going through with announcing. How has that allowed you to become a better teacher as well?
Well, let me say this, that I've been fortunate that since I have had a relationship with Trib Live, every year about 3 of my students, including you, have gotten jobs at the Trib Live High School Sports Network. So that's good for their resume to have that paid decision on their. We're falling apart here.
Yeah, Lanny just became a foot shorter.
Yeah, I did.
It's somewhere under there.
Whatever. I think it's great that you guys have had this chance to do sports, There you go. Thank you.
There we go.
Yeah, and you get a chance to do sports, and hopefully when you get out of Waynesburg, there's going to be not only more work on Triple-I, but also the opportunity to open up other opportunities for you.
All right, so a couple more questions, then we're going to go to our lightning round. What was the brightest moment of your career?
My relationship with Jim Leyland. Nothing from my 32 years with the Pirates means more to me than having developed an outstanding relationship with Jim, and I'm deeply indebted to him for him opening up to me the way he did and shared valuable information to me and made me a better broadcaster.
All right, so this one's probably the deepest on the list. If you could go back in time and give advice to 30-year-old Lanny Frattare, what would you tell him?
I would tell him that when you have bad nights, you should not overdo the criticism of yourself. There were too many nights that I was not happy with the job I did as a Pirate broadcaster, and I was guilty of those occasions where I would do on a broadcast, I would do 95 things right and do 5 things wrong, and I would be driving home and would be extremely critical of the 5 things that I did wrong. If I had the chance to talk to a young Lanny Frattare, I'd say get over it quicker.
All right, lightning round now on the Calm Conversation with Lanny Frattare. If you weren't a play-by-play announcer, what career path would you have chosen? No veterinarian aspirations?
No. My dad, when I was growing up, my dad owned a bowling alley. It was eight alleys.
Okay.
I guess because of how much I loved him, I probably, if I had nothing else to do, I probably would have gotten into the bowling business with him.
The bowling business. I've never heard that one before. That's a good one. Favorite Pirates player?
Well, Jim Leyland, my favorite. Kent Tekulve. I met Teak in the minor leagues, 1974. And we both made it to the major leagues about the same time. Kent Tekulve's wife, Linda, is godmother for our daughter, Megan. So there's been a close bond between the Frattares and the Tekulves for some time.
Favorite non-Pirates player?
I'm back up again. I'm moving back up. Non-Pirates player?
Non-Pirates player.
Craig Biggio.
Craig Biggio.
Houston Astros, a great guy. Every time I would see the Astros or we were playing the Astros, I would see Craig and he would typically say, hey, you need an interview, which when you're doing interviews, pregame shows, you're so happy when a player volunteers to do one with you.
Mm-hmm. Best baseball announcer of all time, in your opinion? I figured you'd say that.
Yeah. Nobody has ever come close to doing the game as well as Vince Scully does the game. And the amazing thing about it is that throughout most of Vince's career, he's done it alone. When he was working the networks, he and Joe Garagiola were on together, but without
not
question.
Close.
Not anywhere close. Nobody else comes anywhere close to Vince Scully.
What was your greatest call ever?
Well, 2 things. Number one, again, going back to what a point I made earlier, I was always guilty of trying to have a perfect broadcast. Mm-hmm. And the time I thought I almost had a perfect broadcast. Not that the one thing I did wrong was marred it, but Doug Drabek pitched 8 2/3 no-hit innings.
Okay.
And then on a 3-ball, 2-strike count to Sil Capusano, he got the base hit that broke up the no-hitter. I really thought I had done a fabulous job of setting the stage for the final stages of that story. And the other gun is that I've always believed that the best sportscasters are those that are able to describe a monumental event clearly and concisely. The Pirates had a no-hit game. Francisco Cordova and Ricardo Rincon. Cordova pitched 9 innings, no-hit. Rincon pitched 10, the 10th. And in baseball rules, when Cordova got to 9 no-hit innings, it still was not a no-hitter. It doesn't become a no-hitter until the game is over. So then in that bottom of the 10th inning, Mark Smith hit a home run, a 3-run homer. And I said, home run, no-hitter, Pirates win, you've got it all. And that's all I said. And I thought that was the best call I'd ever had.
I actually know, this kind of moves into the next question. I actually know your answer to this, but I want it on the record because I completely agree with it. An announcer cannot jinx a no-hitter.
He cannot. No, there's nothing an announcer does impacts the sporting event. You know, I hear it all the time. Oh, this guy hasn't missed a putt and blah, blah, blah. An announcer, and as it relates to no-hitter, you can't do a good job of describing the game and helping your audience understand what they're dealing with if you don't periodically say no-hitter. And what you want to have happen is you want the audience to call their friends and neighbors and say, "Hey, tune on the Pirates game. This, Doug Drabek got a no-hitter going." So nothing an announcer does can ever impact. If there's superstitions in the dugout or in the locker room, go at it. Good for you, but not announcers.
Final question: what's your favorite non-baseball sport to announce? If you're not announcing baseball, what's your favorite?
I really enjoy doing basketball, but particularly when I'm courtside. I really love being right down there in the middle of the action, and I think I'm an A baseball announcer. I'm probably a B basketball announcer, and I'm a C football announcer, maybe C minus even, but. Yeah, I really enjoy doing basketball.
Lanny, thank you so much.
All right, Mitch, thank you.
We'll be back next time on WCTV's The Calm Conversation.